Wow, what a lot of tough acts to follow today. Huh? Thank you. Thank you so much. Let's take a quick moment and thank all the staff and leadership of the Michigan Climate Action Network and Groundwork Center for putting this amazing day on. It's a lot of work. As Seth said, I am stepping into a big role. And the first thing that I want to do is acknowledge the amazing work by our outgoing director, Kate Madigan, in building this. Thank you. Your vision and leadership is why we are all here today, and we owe you a huge debt of gratitude that can never be repaid. All we can do is pay it forward now. Thank you, Kate. So in closing today's summit today, I want to share a little bit of my personal journey so that, 500 people can get to know me at once. I still hope to have the 1,000 cups of coffee with each one of you. But this way you'll know a little bit about me and where I'm coming from and how I think about these issues. And then I want to share a little bit about what you can expect from me and what you can expect from the network moving forward from today. So to begin, I grew up on a big family farm in Western Iowa, learning both the value of stewardship and, for better or worse, caucus style politics. The UN framework on climate change was signed the same year I graduated high school, and I can still remember writing a paper about it way back when carbon dioxide levels were already at 350 parts per million. Next, I was a forester. I went to the University of Tennessee to study the art and science of growing trees. I remember telling my friends in the other wildlife and recreation fields, trees are just easier to study than people and wildlife. They don't move around all the time. I don't know what you people are doing. Today, though, the USDA Forest Service, through the forest inventory analysis, has documented that tree species ranges have shifted in conjunction with climate change impacts of increasing temperature and changing precipitation patterns. One of the early recognitions for myself in doing this work was that maybe I had it wrong. The trees are moving, right? Throughout my early career in practicing science on the land, I was constantly drawn to the social aspects and drivers with questions like many of you raised today. Who has power? How do we get power? How do we control our lives? What really does influence our livelihoods? Those of farmers and foresters, indigenous communities, you and me. So I went back to school, realized I had a lot to learn, as Elena's program is going to help us do, and took about everything you can imagine in the social sciences and humanities and did a master's of science back at the University of Tennessee and then to Syracuse, New York for my PhD in a joint program with the State University of New York College of Environmental Science and Forestry and earned my PhD in environmental policy and politics. I brought with me a turtle and a cat, and global carbon dioxide levels hit 370 parts per million. Next, I was the professor. I started at Western Michigan University in Kalamazoo the same year that proposed cap and trade legislation for greenhouse gas emissions passed the House but failed to ever have a hearing in the floor of the Senate. Bridging the natural and social sciences, I moved forward with my academic career researching and teaching in environmental policy and law. I've studied for many years interest groups, what we're about to do together, and the role of litigation, as you heard from Marguerite in line 5 today, how the courts and people actually influence public policy. After just a few years at Western Michigan University, I became the chair of the Interdisciplinary Climate Change Working Group, which brings over 100 faculty, students, and staff together to lead several academic and outreach programs. The same year that Kate Madigan and many of you had the vision to create the MICAN, I was busy with my colleagues launching an undergraduate minor in climate change studies so that every student would understand the causes, consequences, and solutions to climate change. That was a big year, 2015. We got a little something called the Paris Agreement that year, and still, global carbon dioxide levels passed the 400 parts per million mark. As climate change became my primary focus, my research shifted to studying how and why local communities, cities, townships, municipalities adopted and implemented climate action policies. I've always been what's called a prac-ademic, theoretically grounded, sure, but ultimately interested in what practically works on the ground. As many folks talked about today, the real people power of the implementation at the community level. So if there was a committee working on climate, I was on it, or I probably started it. Following the urgency of the science in 2018 with that jaw-dropping 1.5 degree UN report, making it abundantly clear that every 0.1 degree matters. It matters to all life on Earth. In that same year, we saw the reawakening of social movements, from Greta Thunberg's Fridays for Future to new groups like Extinction Rebellion. We held our own climate strike in Kalamazoo that year and launched a new organization. And for the last 3 years, I have led the Kalamazoo Climate Crisis Coalition, taking collective action to address climate change in our community by passing climate emergency declarations and writing climate action plans. I know many of my colleagues are on Zoom today. It is Kalamazoo, so to speak. And so I do want to give a huge shout out and thank you. I'm so grateful to all my colleagues for these many, many years in Kalamazoo. I have learned so much from you about how to organize, about what communities actually need, and how to really merge all those things I'm supposed to know with what we can actually do. Thank you, Kalamazoo. Yeah. And if you're in Kalamazoo, go work with them. So by now, some of you have done the math and know how old I am. Yes, I am almost as old as the modern environmental movement. I'm a product of it and its many successes. And yet I find now that the environmental, social, political conditions have changed drastically. We must also change to meet these new conditions. A global pandemic, a reckoning with economic inequality, systemic racism, and yes, the historic lack of climate action. These issues are intertwined, so much so that I find that, much like my beloved trees, it's time for me to move again. To take everything I may have learned about science and politics and social movements and community members and dedicate myself full-time to this work to meet the urgency of this moment and all that it requires. Because I see, much like the dawn of the original environmental movement, the same kind of awakening, the same kind of people searching for connection and for what they can do. Yes, the time to act was 50, 30, 20, 10, even 5 years ago, even yesterday. But we are here now, and there is still time. When ruminating on timelines and making transitions like I just shared, many times it came up today, despair, why aren't we acting? In those moments, I like to think about a phrase by the writer Roy Scranton, which was a book I never would have read without our Kalamazoo book club. So shout out to Kalamazoo again. It's about taking action. And the line that I use to think about that paradox is this: it is always and never too late. It is always and never too late. It's very Buddhist. Thank you for that stuff. It also reminded me, as I heard Marnice speak and others speak today, sometimes you have to slow down to go fast. And we are in one of those moments. Indeed, in my 20 years of educating, studying, contributing to, and encouraging action, I have never been more optimistic about our ability to reconnect with the natural world and reimagine our own future. Why, you ask? Well, I hope you were listening today. Why? Because each of you are taking those actions. We have a statewide My Healthy Climate Plan. We have LCV and League of Women Voters working together and promote the vote to elect climate champions. Come on. We got money that we need to tell people how to use it. That's never happened in my career. We know the solutions. We have public opinion. There's something called kayaktivist that I need to learn more about, apparently. There's a local community guide. All these folks are tabling, and I know you're going to talk more with each of them about how to take these specific actions. I think it's good to remind ourselves of the mission of the Climate Action Network. The MICAN connects and amplifies individuals, communities, and organizations confronting the climate crisis in Michigan and supports them in advancing equitable climate solutions with the urgency science demands for the environment and all that live in it. Built on 3 goals: to build and mobilize the climate movement. Over 500 of you here and on Zoom today. That's a movement. We're here to make climate a top priority in Michigan. We have a plan. There is money. We need to be telling folks what should be done with it. And the 3rd goal is to advance equitable climate solutions for 100% clean energy by supporting that local climate work and getting those state policy changes. So what can you expect from me? Well, the first one, you've probably learned I'm a pretty positive person. I take a very collaborative approach and positive approach to addressing the climate crisis. The Michigan environmental community already does a really wonderful job of working together. The evidence of that is all around you today. That's not true in many other places, and we should really give ourselves a hand for the work that we do. We celebrate each other's successes, we promote and we value and share each other. I'm committed to maintaining and, if possible, improving that partnerships with all the existing groups and all the new forms yet to come. Second, it is my intention to bridge what social scientists call the attitude behavior gap. We know people care. We know the actions and solutions we have to take, and we know we need to deploy them rapidly. So why aren't we taking them faster and better? Of course, the political obstacles, but I would agree much more with many of the speakers today. It's number one, because we have not put local and BIPOC voices at the beginning of this movement. And number two, because we have a bit of a lack of imagination, more of an imagination crisis. What will this future beautiful world look like off of fossil fuels, with clean jobs, with air that we can breathe, with me being able to walk everywhere, to get on public transit? That's the world that we are fighting for. We can do this. Again, I'm a product of the original modern environmental movement in the 1970s. A lot of great successes were done. And now we have an opportunity to fix the things that we did not do right in that movement. Again, most notably, Indigenous and BIPOC voices. My big next thing that I'm going to ask all of you to be part of, my work and my priority is going to be launch a listening tour. And don't worry, Jesse, I heard you. It's going to be an action tour as well. We're going to take the input. I want to go around and talk to folks, hopefully in person if we possibly ever can, virtually if we have to, with the goal of expanding and uniting this Michigan Climate Action Network. I will be seeking you out to understand your triumphs, your challenges, and needs from the communities across Michigan. Again, to listen to the lived experience from the local, from the bottom up, about what is needed, what you already know how to do, to support that vision and to facilitate changes that you need, whether they be in state policy, whether they be about power, whether they be about different forms of capacity, and to make taking effective action the norm that we all can see. I invite everyone to engage and share and support and connect with me and the network, because as has been said many times today, together we can do this. And by together, I do mean true inclusivity. I am committed to a new way forward to make the just transition a reality. Climate justice is racial justice. Climate change and racism are symptoms of the same unequal systems, connected and rooted in systemic injustice. Any solutions rely on the recognition by people like me, who benefit from white privilege, to address those root causes and commit ourselves to diversity, equity, inclusion. Because if we do not do this, then we will not really be addressing climate change either. I really loved, I think it was Beth called it false solutions. a great way to think about that. I know that the MICAN and groundwork staff will be undergoing equity and diversity training, and MICAN will then be launching into strategic plan later this summer and early fall with an equity-centered movement. The future is not inevitable. It does not yet exist, but it will come into being as a result of the decisions and the way that we change our worldview. Remember the opening remarks of all our relations. It's not set in stone. If we can remember those words of our opening blessing and remember that we are human and we need each other and that we do have this moment in time, we can do this. So let's make a future that works for everyone. Yeah? Yeah? All right. Thank you so much for the warm welcome and for the investment in our mutual success that you make today and every day. I look forward to continuing this conversation. I know you in person will get to talk at this reception, but again, I am going on a listening, action-oriented tour to talk to every single one of you that wants to talk with me about what you can do next.